Greetings. We're going to be taking a look at Edward Gein, and I believe by the end of the presentation you'll be able to see why he is considered to be, among many other things, the original American Horror Story. First we'll take a look at the man, and also this will help get a sense of why he chose the path that he chose. He was born in 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin, to Augusta and George. George, by all accounts, was an alcoholic and considered to be a weak man both in character and in body. And Augusta was powerful, overpowering, you could say. Basically ruled over her family with a Bible in one hand and a switch in the other. And this is what Ed and his brother were born into. Augusta's view of the Bible and religion was very hardline. Fire and brimstone and the evils of women. And this is what was preached to Edward and his brother on a nightly basis. Primarily the fact that women are evil and seek to corrupt men. Well, everybody, all women except for her, of course. And this is what the brothers knew growing up. Ed, growing up, really showed no violent tendencies at least that anybody knew of. In school, he was not the best student, but he was also not the worst, and he had the nickname of Weird Ed. Part of it wasn't his fault. He was a little strange, and teachers had said that every now and then he would burst out laughing for no reason and things like that. Another issue that I'm sure led to kids calling him weird was he had a growth on his eye, which kind of made him look like he had a lazy eye. And also he had a little bit of a growth on his tongue, which caused him to talk a little bit funny. But he grew up to be a small man, about 5'5", and he was known to be quiet. But he was also trusted. He would, later in life, when Augusta passed away and it was just Ed by himself at the farm, he would babysit neighborhood children, not at his house, but he would go to babysit at their houses. And he was known to be very handy, and so he would do odd jobs for people all around town. But he lived on his farm, quiet and isolated and away from most of the town people. What people didn't know is that Ed lived a double life. Ed's first victim was never confirmed, but most people agree that Ed's brother Henry was the first to die at his hands. The reason this is believed to have happened is because Ed and his brother were fighting a fire on their property, and later Ed would report that he got separated from his brother and didn't know where he was. However, he was able to lead authorities directly to his brother's body, and although he had been surrounded by fire, the body was undamaged from the fire, and he also had bruising on the back of his head. However, nobody really believed that little old Ed Gein could have committed murder. So Henry was buried, and the official cause of death was asphyxiation due to the fire. Ed's first confirmed victim was Mary Hogan. She was a tavern owner in the town where Ed lived, and although Ed wasn't a heavy drinker, he visited the bar fairly regularly. This was due to the fact that Mary Hogan, although she looked like Ed's mother, she had a very different personality. She was loud and foul-mouthed and, was basically one of the guys. She disappeared in 1954, and even though foul play was suspected, nobody was ever caught for the crime. Ed's second and final victim was Bernice Warden, and she owned a hardware store in town, and on the day that was the first hunting day in Wisconsin, all the men were out in town hunting deer, and when they came back in town in late afternoon, they discovered that her store was still closed. And when they went in to inspect, they found blood on the floor, the cash register missing, and also discovered that Bernice Warden was missing. Ed, not being a criminal mastermind had left the last receipt, which was made out to him, on the counter. And this obviously led police to go, maybe not suspect him immediately, but obviously needing to go question him. Two police officials drove up to the Gein farm and discovered that it seemed to be empty and locked, and they went around the side and eventually gained entry to the house. And what they discovered changed a lot of things in how they viewed Ed. For one, it was a mess, but they also discovered that he had sealed off most of the house as a tribute or homage to his mother, leaving it exactly as she had left it. And this is where it gets a little bit graphic. As they gained entry into the home, on the side barn, they discovered Bernice Worden's body. And it was hanging from the rafters of the barn like a deer. And she had also been gutted like a deer. All her internal organs were missing, and she was also decapitated. When they went inside the house, they found her head inside of a sack. And as I had stated before, Bernice Mary Hogan had actually been missing for 3 years by this point. And you can imagine the terror and disgust and surprise when a police officer opened up a bag and actually recognized Mary Hogan's face. And her face was actually a mask that Edward Gein had made out of her skin. They found bones and a lot of human skin, more than 2 women's worth. And what they had discovered is that Ed had been grave robbing for many years. He would watch the obituaries and look for middle-aged women and when the funeral date was, and that night he would go and dig up their bodies. He would take, sometimes he would just take trophies, but often he would take the whole body. He would remove the skin, oftentimes remove the face. The faces he would make into masks, and the skin he would do everything from upholster furniture with it to, in a very twisted and extreme case, he made a corset from a female torso so that he could put it on and basically wear the skin of a woman. He also, in what can only be deemed as sexually deviant or psychosexual, he had the vulva of 9 women inside of a shoebox. Throughout the home he had several skulls, some of which had the tops sawn off so they look like bowls. As you can see in the picture, it's a mock-up of what he had done. Ed was actually captured without incident. In essence, he turned himself in, and initially he wasn't talking, but he had one request, which was a piece of apple pie with cheese on top. And once he finished that, he confessed to everything. The murders of the 2 women, Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden, and then also all the grave robbing that he had done that the police didn't know about until they entered his home. Ed was sent to a mental institution to be assessed, and the psychiatrists and psychologists there deemed him to be schizophrenic and a sexual psychopath, and deemed him not mentally competent to stand trial for the murder. So he was simply sent away to a facility for the criminally insane. 11 years later, he was deemed fit to stand trial, and he was convicted. However, he was deemed to be insane at the time of the crime, so he was simply sent back to the facility for the criminally insane. And that is where he spent the rest of his life until 1984, basically being a model patient. Ed Gein's crimes were horrific, and most people didn't quite understand how someone could do this to another person. His crimes coming to light gave us a window into madness and inspired generations of storytellers, some of which we know to this day. For instance, there's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which opens with the line based on a true story. And although it's a Hollywood version of it, this is very much based on the life and crimes of Ed Gein. from the isolated farmhouse to the furniture inside made of humans and human skin, and then most directly Leatherface himself. Although Ed didn't use a chainsaw, I'm talking, of course, about the face mask made out of another human's face. There's also Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. You may remember that he was kidnapping and killing women to get enough skin to make himself a skin suit. And lastly, and actually it was first and most directly, there's Norman Bates. Norman Bates is a direct fictionalized version of Ed. There are several links from the quiet demeanor to the mother worship and having an overpowering mother who in essence led to the murders and directed his insanity to murder women. And that's just a short list of the characters he has inspired. I hope this has helped you have a better understanding of Ed Gein, and will also help you to recognize him in his fictionalized versions in movies and TV. Thank you.